Could Kid Goku survive the Culling games? In a previous video, I already went over how Goku would do if he was in the Shibuya Incident, and you guys really seemed to like it. So I thought I'd run it back and see what would happen if that same Goku had indeed managed to survive. Would he be able to survive the next big event in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen? Of course, this video is going to have spoilers for the Jujutsu Kaisen manga, as pretty much everything I'll be covering happens after the end of Season 2. If you do like this kind of stuff, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's jump right in. Firstly, when it comes to these cross-verse videos, it's always important to establish who's actually fighting who and what the rules are. In this video, we will be using Goku from between the 21st and 22nd Budokai, just to keep it consistent with the last video. As for the Culling Games participants, instead of just putting Goku up against just the bad guys, due to the somewhat battle royale nature of the Culling Games, we'll be putting Goku up against pretty much any of the strong guys who were there at the time, rather than just the ones who may be considered bad or against the good guys. Due to the Culling Games technically being made up of 13 different zones, instead of just one big area like Shibuya was, we'll be going over how Goku does in each individual colony, rather than just listing off all of the people who technically participated. Also, of course, we don't see much of the other peripheral stuff that happened in each of these colonies, so generally we're going to be talking about the four big ones that we follow in the story. Tokyo 1, which is where Yuji went, Tokyo 2, which is where Hikari went, Sendai, which is where Yuta went, and Sakurajima, which is where Maki went. For those of you who already watched the previous video and are already familiar with Kid Goku that we're talking about and his power scaling, you can skip to here to get to the Culling Game colonies and the gauntlet of characters Goku is being put up against. However, I will be specifying some things that confused people last time, as I didn't go in depth into things as I could have in some of Kid Goku's aspects. For attack potency, it's relatively the same. At this point in the story, Goku's base form has a power level between 139 and 180. Despite this though, a small change of power level at this point in the story is actually a multiplicative difference, as Goku's power level barely increased during his training on Korin's Tower, and then his strength was multiplied several times over. Still, this Goku during his fight against Baba's minions made Master Roshi believe he needed to train in order to not be beaten by Goku again, which makes sense due to at this time, Goku had a higher power level. I've always found it likely that this was also talking about Roshi's full power form, or buff Roshi, the one that destroyed Mount Frypan, as Roshi does not think that would allow him to beat Goku. As I've talked about before in the past, Roshi's moonbusting feat comes from something known as the max power technique, which, based off of being stronger than Great Ape Kid Goku, doesn't actually scale to Roshi at this point, and likely doesn't get surpassed until Tien uses the Tri-Beam during the 22nd Budokai. If you do actually think Goku surpassed Max Power Roshi, that's fine. I just disagree, and it also makes this video a lot more uninteresting overall if we go with that scale. I just think it makes a lot more sense that Goku at this point in the story is just above mountain level, rather than being a full-on moonbuster. Next is speed. And for this section, I kinda just quickly blew past it in the last video and didn't really explain it. Mercenary Tao is able to throw a pillar across a substantial portion of the Dragon Ball continent, which is calculated to require Mach 20 speeds, given the distance and time frame. Now, while people can throw things much faster than they can, say, throw a punch, the problem is that Tao can literally jump and catch up to this pillar, meaning he does scale to it in speed. And given how this Goku slammed him, he would too. Now, of course, there are higher speed scales, but for the most part, I won't really need to be dwelling too much on speed. The JJK-verse and Goku at this point have arguable overlapping speed feats depending on different calcs and how you interpret certain statements from Gege directly. Saying speed blitz GG when you can argue speed kind of defeats the point of having an interesting conversation in hypothetical. Given how there are so many Culling Games players with really interesting matchups to go over, let's not waste any more time with Goku and jump in by talking about the first colony, Tokyo number 1. Now, the range and quality in this colony is probably the highest of any of the ones we know about. While you have powerhouses like Takaba and Higuruma, you also have Reggie Star and all of his goons. It almost goes without saying that Goku easily beats pretty much all of those random guys here. Unless you really think that Mr. Propellerhead or Guy with Claws is doing anything against Goku, we'll be skipping to arguably the 3 strongest people of the colony: Higuruma, Takaba, and Yuji. Yuji is the easiest to go over. even if their stats were identical, Goku is just an infinitely better fighter than Yuji and simply has more abilities. At this point, Yuji doesn't have his healing, his blood manipulation, or his soul attacks, and really can just do kicks and punches with cursed energy. Meanwhile, even at this point, Kid Goku is on the same level of skill as Grandpa Gohan, who had mastered every martial art to exist. At worst, they throw hands equally, and then Yuji just gets blown away by a Kamehameha. Next is Higuruma, which I think maybe is less interesting from a fighting standpoint, but rather more interesting from how Goku would interact with his domain expansion. For those who need a reminder, Higuruma's domain works like a courthouse. It removes the ability to do violence or conduct attacks within it, an ability that even worked on Sukuna, seemingly. If someone does enough crimes to be given the death penalty, Higuruma gets the Executioner Sword, a weapon capable of killing pretty much any character in the story. I'm less concerned about if Higuruma could actually win the fight, given how if Yuji could beat him, Goku probably could too, and more interested on what Goku would be charged with inside Higuruma's domain. I see two options. Either Goku gets charged with his murder of Grandpa Gohan while as a Great Ape, or gets charged with the damage he caused by his full assault on the Red Ribbon Army. Now, the main thing going against Goku here is that he's not nearly smart enough to properly defend himself in court. However, if he could, do you think Higuruma could legally get the death penalty on Goku for either of these, just like he did for Sukuna's action while in Yuji's body? Let me know. Either way, given how the sword could have killed Sukuna instantly had he not literally cut his own hand off, I really don't see Goku surviving getting stabbed by it either. However, just like both Sukuna and Yuji, I don't see him getting stabbed ever happening, with how much more skilled and experienced as a fighter Goku is compared to Higuruma. An even weirder matchup is then Goku versus Takaba. Takaba probably has one of, if not the strongest ability in the story, Comedian, which rivals or is even stronger than Gojo's Infinity, but Takaba barely knows how it works and really isn't in control of it. Still, as it's generally described, as long as he is confident in his humor, he can make anything he finds funny happen. It's quite literally the definition of like random bullshit go. Without a doubt, he is the weirdest and hardest character to scale within all of Jujutsu Kaisen. However, like I just said, his confidence is key for this ability to work. When Takaba isn't confident in his abilities or his humor, he essentially becomes powerless. If Goku can shatter this confidence, then Takaba's ability just doesn't work. In all honesty, this fight would be really weird, both of them probably being unable to damage the other, as Takaba just undoes the damage Goku does to him, and most of Takaba's attacks probably not being strong enough to do any lasting damage. Just like Kenjaku, Goku's sheer strength might cause Takaba's strength to waver, but Goku certainly wouldn't be able to rival Takaba as a comedian like Kenjaku did, since Goku's best, quote, humor feat is making King Kai laugh at a pun. If I'm being a realist, Goku might potentially just completely overpower Takaba regardless of his ability, or maybe Goku just gets off guarded by a special grade level truck, but probably not. So, overall, unless he gets very, very unlucky either against the Executioner Sword or Takaba's humor, Goku is probably making it through Tokyo 1 with ease. But that done, let's move on to the next colony, Tokyo number 2. And here we probably get the two most iconic characters to come out of this arc, Hikari and Kashimo. This fight is when Jujutsu Kaisen's speed scaling also gets pretty weird. With how relative top tiers supposedly only surpass Mach 3, Hikari comes around and straight up just dodges Kashimo's lightning, which is a massively hypersonic plus feat in speed, which is way faster. Now, some people argue that Goku doesn't reach lightning speed until his training with Popo due to his dodging lightning training. However, Goku had already potentially dodged attacks way faster than this already, and the training was to sense the lightning to dodge it, rather than outright just being faster than it. For all the characters in Tokyo number 1, I didn't really have to go over attack potency for any of the top tiers, because essentially all their main abilities seem to negate durability in some way, either from having a sword that literally kills you in one hit, or whatever weird reality warping Takaba was doing. But for both Kashimo and Hikari, this is not the case, as both of them for the most part are just attack potency merchants, with Kashimo having his electric cursed energy and Hikari having his domain, which we'll go over in a moment. Now, both of these characters are essentially pure attack power merchants, either punching or zapping their opponents to win, due to both of them being able to hurt each other. Hikari and Kashimo should be within the same tier of attack potency, which is at best in some degree higher than mountain level, given how both should be able to beat the disaster curses, whose domains have been calculated to be mountain level in size. This would put all three of them at somewhat comparable levels of attack power, so really it comes down to how their abilities and hacks would interact, and honestly, it would become a battle of attrition between the three of them. Of them, Goku is far and away the best fighter, and tools like the power pole and ranged attacks like the Kamehameha provide an excellent ranged advantage over both JJK characters. Thus, generally, Kashimo would be way easier to deal with, as key attacks would just be a better version of Kashimo's lightning. It's very unlikely Kashimo would use his curse technique though, given how he straight up lost to Hikari and still chose to not use it because he wasn't Sukuna. Still, once again, if you think Mythical Beast Kashimo is Lightspeed because of his electromagnetic waves, and Goku isn't Lightspeed yet, then yeah, Kashimo would potentially blitz Goku outright. But again, even if using that ability would let him win in a fight, he would never use it against anyone who isn't Sukuna. Hikari is a bit more interesting. As we all know, once Hikari hits a jackpot using his domain, he effectively becomes immortal as an endless amount of reverse cursed energy flows through his body, allowing him to regenerate even faster than Sukuna or Gojo could. Ironically, this fight would become a lot like the fights Goku would have later on in his career, against the likes of Kid Buu and Cell. While Goku might be a better fighter than both of them, his opponent has way better, or just has regeneration. However, Hikari's regeneration is not unlimited. Can run into a situation where he doesn't hit a jackpot and loses his unlimited RCT. And again, with all the general combat advantages, Goku would likely outlast Hikari until he runs out of his domain expansions or jackpot. Hikari's only hope really is getting Goku to run out of energy like Kashimo did, but I find it far more likely that Goku beats Hikari before that happens. 2 colonies down, 2 more to go. Next, we'll cover Sakurajima. This is probably the easiest one to go over, as there's really only 2 characters of note here, Maki Zenin and Curse Naoya. Now, unless you kinda just ignore the narration of the fight, the characters at this point are literally Mach 3 and would probably get mega blitzed by Goku without any difficulty. Even equalizing stats here, it's not that much better. Goku is just a better version of Maki, and I think her only win condition would be hitting him with her soul-splitting katana. But again, it would probably go the same way as Goku versus Toji like I talked about in the last video. Now, for Naoya, Goku genuinely might be screwed if he managed to open his domain expansion, a domain that directly targets the cells if they don't move properly and cuts them is something Goku doesn't have a counter for, as he's never shown bodily control on that level, especially as a kid. However, again, Goku is bare minimum likely 7 times faster than them if you take the manga's narration to be serious, so I don't think either of these win conditions are happening. Finally, we reach Sendai, and this is where we have 3 or maybe 4 powerhouses, being the participants of the 3-way domain clash and the one who broke it, Yuta, Ryu, Uro, and Kuroshi. There's also Druve, but lol. The only real advantage that Kuroshi has in this fight is that due to being a curse spirit, it's unlikely Goku would be able to see him. Regardless of this, I don't think he really has any ability or strong attack that would substantially pose a harm to Goku and just blow him away. The best thing he can go for is catching Goku completely off guard, but one strong Kamehameha is probably cutting him in half. Next, Goku would absolutely love to fight Ryu. After all, he's the only JJK character seemingly capable of using the Kamehameha with his Granite Blasts, which are known for having the highest output among all Culling games player at some point during the games. Imagine a beam clash between the two of them. That being said, even if they are both vaguely in the same tier with their beams, in any other setting, Goku is absolutely thrashing Ryu, even with his unnaturally high durability. The same situation happens with Uro. Her thin icebreaker really doesn't give her any particular advantage that isn't trounced by Goku's infinite greater fighting ability. She might be able to bend space or reflect a ki blast, but what about a second one? And finally we reach maybe the final boss of the Culling games, at least for this colony. Yuta Okkotsu, the special grade sorcerer whose odd abilities in the world of the Jujutsu Kaisen are only second to Gojo. Along with Rika, the Queen of Curses, as well as his domain expansion, Authentic Mutual Love, can Goku win? And I'm gonna just keep it short here. Probably not. With both of them just being both vaguely above mountain level at this point, Yuta just has so many more abilities in his favor in comparison to Goku. Reverse Curse technique, attacks from Rika that Goku wouldn't be able to see, curse tools that match the power pole, and if his domain expansion comes out, all of Yuta's attacks become even more varied with a sure hit effect. In short, Goku is probably getting cooked if we're being relatively charitable to the JJK-verse. So, overall, can Goku survive the Culling games? Well, it would honestly depend on which colony he starts in. As we've discussed, some colonies Goku would probably solo with ease, while others would be insanely hard fights where he more likely than not would not come out on top. So, let me know what you think. How likely is it that Goku makes it out alive? Let me know in the comments down below. See ya.